I've done lots of interviews over the last few years. The one with Sam Farmer surprised me the most. And not necessarily because of the interview, which went about the way I thought it would, but with something that happened after the interview. Occasionally, after the interview, the guest will keep talking, and sometimes I'll incorporate that extra bit of interview into the interview, and sometimes I'll leave it out and make it a short. What happened in the extra few minutes of this interview when it was over surprised me. Sam said something to me that touched me very much and made me reconsider a lot of things about myself. Um, I have had many experiences in my life, some of which have been difficult and damaging, and some of which have been wonderful and incredible. But I've gone through my life always with the feeling that something was wrong and that I needed to spend my life correcting the thing that was wrong to fix myself so that I could go ahead and then be happy afterwards. Sam's comments to me made me rethink all of that. And they made me go back and take a look at my life and assess who I was. And what I found surprised me. I was consistently the same person throughout my life, despite all the improvements I had made, despite all the progress I'd made, all the healing I had done. And I had to come to the conclusion that I was healed, that I was a complete person, and that there's nothing left to fix. What I needed to do was decide that I was this person with good things and bad things and move forward to work with the bad things and make use of the good things. And I wanted to thank Sam personally for this, but even more, I wanted to share this brief bit of the interview with you. And if you like this brief bit of the interview, you might enjoy the full interview, which will be linked at the end. All right, Sam, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Good, Adam. Yeah, with me, even if you bring up something that others might construe as embarrassing, I'm generally laid back about those things.
Good. I suspected
Again,
as
I
much.
it's important to hear other people out, even if what they have to say might be a little awkward. But in that way, as an interviewer, you're being true to yourself and asking the questions you want to ask,
Yeah.
where really this can't be all about me.
Oh,
You
well,
should
hopefully.
bring an element of yourself into it as well.
I'm
It's a
glad you feel
two-way
that way.
street.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that people feel that way when they watch the interviews. I do. There's a selfish aspect to these interviews in every case, and a hidden one in this case because I mean, I haven't talked to you, but I mean, I've been fascinated with the spectrum for a couple decades now. I a lot of your story mirrors mine in a very distant way. I was never diagnosed with a learning disability, but I certainly had some very interesting challenges growing up. And
Sure.
when I first really started learning about the spectrum, I went to see Temple Grandin and
Sure.
Carol Gray also. They were both speakers. And Carol Gray told a lot of stories about social stories and the stories behind them. And some of the things she said just struck me to my core and just brought me to tears. And I felt a profound connection with these people on the spectrum that I couldn't account for. Um, I I have been assessed before. No, I've had lots of therapy and I've been assessed, and no one's ever told me I'm on the spectrum. But I always wonder.
A lot of people wonder, a lot of people self-diagnose. Some people think that's bogus, that you need a diagnosis from a professional, but not me, not many of us in the community, particularly those of us who subscribe more to the social model.
Yeah,
We see great legitimacy in self-diagnosis, knowing that a meaningful process would lead to that. Um, but the reality is that there are a lot of neurodivergent individuals in the world who don't know it. Maybe they don't need to know it. Maybe they would be better off knowing it. I became immensely better off knowing it, but it's ultimately it's about, regardless of how your brain is wired or what your challenges are, your talents, is I think just being true to who you are. regardless of all these labels, of
Yeah.
whether you are labeled or you're not. Just be true to who you are.
Yeah. That's quite a challenge, especially if you're trying to figure out who you are.
Correct. It's often easier said than done. And when you unmask autism, that can be a very, very frightening prospect for a lot of people. I think largely because of the stigma that we're up against and the discrimination that continues to occur, particularly in the workplace, where there's obviously a lot at stake
Yeah.
at work, um, that people can have a very, very difficult time if they're different and if they need accommodations in order to be at their best, but they're not getting those accommodations from their management. Um, but there's a lot to talk about, a lot to write about. I've already written so much. The list of articles that I've published is already long,
Oh, great.
and I've only been an advocate for like a couple of years.
Yeah.
I started writing in 96. The book was out in 99. Starting in 96, late, I became a blogger, writing about experiences, and some of what I wrote about then made it into the book. And then I've written a lot since the book, some of which overlaps with the book, others of which don't. But there's so much to write about with respect to autism and neurodiversity. There's so much to share. And much of what I share revolves around my own lived experiences as an autistic adult, late diagnosed. That's part of how I am, just being true to myself,
Yeah.
living my truth. That's important because if you live a lie, if you have to mask your whole life, there are grave, grave consequences to doing that. And that's unfortunately what a lot of autistic people suffer with is some of them who are older even forget who they truly are. They forget, they lose track of their genuine selves because for an entire lifetime they've had to mask just to try to fit in and be likable. I masked when I was younger, but then eventually I figured out how to unmask and reveal my diagnosis and write about it, etc. I'm one of the lucky ones in that regard.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
very grateful to you for taking that trip and for sharing it. Thank you.